Good morning, folks. You're all very welcome to our new SaaS deep dive webinar this morning. And thank you very much for taking the time to attend. It's great to see that we have over 100 registrations this morning, which is fantastic news. We'll just give it another 1 minute or so just to allow for any stragglers, if you don't mind. Okay, so yeah, guys, thanks again. My name is Barry Hughes. For those that who know me, I'm the channel account manager for the UK. Primarily, I deal with the northern part of the UK. I have done over the last 6 years, but I also work very closely with my colleague Brian Thomas, who does the focus on the southern part of the country. But we very much work as a collective unit. We will record this the session this morning. Now that you've registered, you will automatically get a link to the recording once we're finished. There is a chat box also, as you can see, where you can submit questions. What we do try and do is we try and answer these questions as we go. If we miss any, what we'll do is, and we have the time, we'll get to those questions at the end. I would just ask that anyone on the call, that it is an EMEA call, any partners outside, particularly outside of the UK, who are unsure of who their channel account manager is in region, please take a note of my email, barry.hughes@arcserve.com, and I would gladly put you in touch with your channel account manager dedicated to your account. So just a quick intro, you know who I am. Joining me this morning, we have Richard Hornsby, who is our pre-sales consultant, who'll do an overview and technical deep dive of the new SaaS solution. Jaap van Cleef, the name might ring a bell. Jaap is our technical marketing manager in EMEA. For those of you who would have known him in the past, Jaap was previously a StorageCraft sales engineer with StorageCraft. Great to have him back. He'll do an overview of the technical landscape and, more importantly, how we stack up with this new solution. Jared Foley finally is the channel account manager for Ireland. Jared this morning will do an overview of the portal, how to access it, and what it looks like once you log in and you start to create active seats. I will come back towards the end to cover pricing, sort of things like price breaks, sort of news that I'm hearing back from partners that, like, I've been selling this solution for the past 6 months. It's now just become available in the portal, but we have been selling it quite successfully. And I'm just going to I'm going to bring up a couple of pointers just to summarize towards the end of what I'm hearing from partners like yourselves on the call this morning. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Rich to take over. Over to you, Rich.
Thank you, mate. Let me try and grab presenter. Here we go. Right, ta-da. Hopefully that's coming through. Just let me know, guys, if you can see that.
Yep.
Cool. Right. So, welcome to Arcserve SaaS. So this is, I mean, the first thing you're seeing here is quite simply just a login screen. Okay. Now we've got lots of data centers globally. We'll cover that a little bit later, but just simply sign in. When you first sign in, you guys won't be presented with this because you'll just have a nice blank vanilla build, okay? But this is essentially, I'll go through these, you know, one at a time, basically. But certainly all this is just the dashboard, okay? This is where it's just going to show you the health of the environment, really. But how do we get to that point, okay? So the important thing here is the connectors. So a connector, aptly named, because all that really is just a connection into the SaaS product you wish to back up. Now you can see in my example, I've got Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, even Salesforce and Azure AD, okay? But it's very simple to add those connectors, Okay, all you simply do is click on add a connector at the bottom here. Now, depending on what you pick will depend on what kind of user ID and password and all that kind of good stuff that you need, okay? For Microsoft 365, you just need an admin account, okay? But it does need to have global admin rights, okay? Now, don't panic. The security conscious will think, that's a bit too much. You only need global admin rights for the creation of the connector itself. Once that's done, please feel free to go ahead and remove those permissions, okay? But once you've gone through that process and simply logged in, it will present you with this screen, okay? Now, you can see that in terms of what we're selecting to backup, it's just a radio button, okay? You can pick and choose what you want, okay? Now, our advice is, and best practices, you do break this down. So you create a connector for each element of Office 365 that you can see on the screen, okay? And you can call them what you want as well. If you're kind of multi-tenancy, I guess you may want to put in the customer name or however it may be, okay? But really, there's not too much to show. If I click on configure, for example, it's quite easy to see, you know, here's a list of all the users that I'm going to back up. That's all pretty simple. You can do it via AD groups as well, which is a really good way of doing it. It keeps the kind of the administration really simple. Under advanced, you can see all of the elements of Exchange that we back up. Okay, now you can untick these. I personally wouldn't. The reason for that is because this solution comes with unlimited storage, okay? And it's truly unlimited. There's no caveats there. There's no hidden costs or anything like that. So I can't see any reason in unticking any of those at all. Just back up as much as you possibly can, okay? Other things to bear in mind, bottom right-hand corner, how we manage access to a particular connector. This is who has the rights to see that connector and do stuff with that connector. I'll move on to, I'll show you a little bit about the users as we move forward, okay? This little kind of planner here, if I just click on that, all that is just a retention, guys, okay? So you can have unlimited retention, okay? Now, in reality, what that means is 99 years. However, GDPR, etc., states that you should only really keep data for as long as you need it, but you can set that to pretty much anything you like. As I said earlier, it's unlimited storage, so you've got the freedom to be able to do that, okay? And this little shield at the bottom, this is just re-authenticating the connector. So if maybe the user ID you use, you want to change, or you need to reset the password, or something weird and wonderful happens within Office 365, you don't need to recreate the connector at all. You can just re-authenticate and away you go, okay? So that's a very, very simple and quick kind of overview of how you create a connector. Okay, so if we just come out of that, once you're up and running, once you've created that connector, it will start to do a backup pretty much straight away. Okay, and you'll get 2 backups within a 24-hour period. Okay, so every 12 hours it will perform a backup. Once it's done the first full backup, okay, it will then be forever incrementals. Okay, now then, let's have a look at these connectors. Once you've got them up and running, how do you use them? Okay, well, it's quite simple, really. All you do is you click onto the connector and you are already browsing through the backups that you have available to you. Okay, so here, for example, I can pick on me. I can click on me, see what I've got available to me, go to Outlook, go into Inbox, and you can see the emails that I have. Very, very simple to recover them. Okay, you can just click on a particular email and you can go restore. Nice and simple. But you might need some more options. Obviously, you can browse back at different snapshot points. You can just use the slider bar to go back in time to whichever date you want to restore from. But with this particular product, it really helps you to find and decide what it is you need to restore. So for example, here on this email, if I just click on that email, it will give me a preview. Now at that point, I guess you could confirm with the end user, is that the email that you want? Okay, if so, you can go ahead and do the restore. But you might want to do some other stuff with it, okay? You may want to simply download it. Now, if you do download it, okay, it's just going to create a .eml file. If you then open that file, guess what? It opens it into Outlook, and there you go. Now, at that point, you can forward it, reply to it, just like a normal email. So really, really cool feature. You can create a public share. Okay, so if I click on this, what we can do is we can create a unique link that you can then in turn send on to the end user. And that will just give them the preview. Okay, so they themselves can check to see if it is the email that they want. Now you can add a limited time slot for that. You may want to give them that for an hour, particularly if it's someone that may have left the business, for example. You may want to add a password just for that extra layer of security as well. Okay, you can even print it. if you want to. Save the trees, that's what I say, but you can of course print it if you want to. Okay. Now, in terms of the search functionality, I'll try and demo this. Let's see. So if I go back, let's say if I go back to users, for example. So if I want to search for an email that contains the word test, for example, I can do that very simply and, more importantly, very quickly. You see how quick that was? I clicked on the magnifying glass and bang, it presents all of the emails with the word test in it. And from that point, again, you can preview, you can share a link, whatever you need to do. So a very, very easy and simple tool to find emails, recover emails, but more importantly, give you the options to make sure you are getting the right email. Okay, it's good for that. So that is the connectors. Very, very simple. It's a similar story for OneDrive, SharePoint. It's all pretty much the same thing, really. You know, you click on a connector and you browse through. Okay, one important thing here to say is the metadata with this product is really good. You can see permissions there as well. That's quite a key feature of this particular product. But yeah, may talk about that. He may not, but he might do. Okay, so lots of important features in here. Let's think what else. I'll tell you what, that's enough of the connectors. Okay, what we'll do is let's head through here. So we click on dashboard. As I said earlier, this is really just giving you the health of that particular connector. So I can see this is healthy. I can see when it did the last backup. I can see when the next backup is going to start. But also I can see some important items like when restores have been done, etc., etc. Okay. In terms of job monitor, it's pretty self-explanatory, really. It's just telling you what's going on in the environment. Yeah, when a backup was done, what restores have been done, and you can export this. Okay, you can export it to an Excel spreadsheet if you need to for auditing or whatever it may be. Okay, public links. I've got nothing in here, but if you remember when I previewed that email, it gave me the option to create a public link that would show in there. Okay, that just allows you to either resend it or delete it, tidy up after yourself, whatever it may be. Okay. Users. Now, the users within this particular product is very, very easy to set up. You can see I've got a few in here already, but all you do is click on plus, okay, and add your name and email address, etc. What is key with this is whatever you pick, it will show you what that particular role can and can't do. Now, that's important for a number of reasons. The example that I always tend to give is the difference, say, for example, full support. So full support is someone that can preview emails, etc. Now that's great, but it could be that there's a particular help desk user or you know, a team that you don't actually want them to be able to preview files. There could be some sensitive information in there, okay, but you still want them to be able to do the restore. That's fine. Just go for limited support, okay, where they can't do the preview, but they can of course do the restore. So lots of granular options when it comes to the different user types. Okay, what I do like is the fact that it tells you there and then what it can and can't do. And again, if you've got a user that's only there for a temporary amount of time, you can set an expiration date on it. Okay, what else have we got? Audit log. So yeah, everything you kind of do is tracked and audited within this product. Now this is tamper free. Okay, it's all based on immutable storage, so I can't right click on any of this. I can't delete it or anything like that. So key for when people are doing things like restores and things like that. Okay, it's good to be able to see what's been happening, and of course you can export that to an Excel spreadsheet as well. Okay. RTBF, what does that stand for? That stands for the right to be forgotten. So again, I'll try and give you an example of that. So if I head to my connectors and let's head to Exchange. Now, who shall we pick on? Let's pick on Lee. So as an example, let's say Lee leaves the business and he wants to invoke his right to be forgotten. We can do that. Okay, all we're doing is assigning a right to be forgotten label to that individual. Now, if I click on there, click on next and assign, you'll see that Lee is now grayed out. Now I can't do anything with that user. I can't click on them. I can't explore their information anymore. They are locked down. However, that data isn't deleted, okay? It's all based on immutable storage. We're not going to let you just delete things, but also it's important to keep that data for legal reasons as well. Let's say, for example, there's an HR issue or legal issue, that data is still there and you can still recover from it. Okay, the only thing is it's not that easy. We've put some hurdles in place because they've invoked their right to be forgotten. So if I click on here now, you'll see Lee in there. Okay, so if we need to do some recoveries from there, we can simply remove that RTBF label. Okay, now there's only two types of accounts that can do that. the master admin, and the compliancy user. Okay, so it just gives you that extra layer of protection as a user. So if you do invoke your right to be forgotten, we can certainly assist with this product. Okay, so that is a kind of, I guess it's a very high level view of this product, but hopefully it's kind of shown you how simple and easy it is. Okay, but really it's been designed so that if you want to see more, then please reach out to us. Okay, and we can give you a further full demo if you want to. We can get into things like restores and all sorts of manner of things. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a good understanding of the particular product. Okay, and that's pretty much it from me. Yeah, if you're ready, I don't know if you want to try and grab presenter rights and you can go through your stuff.
And then it also helps if I go off mute. So good morning, everyone, and thanks, Richard, for the demo. So what I'm going to do is quickly go over some of the competitive positioning. We're not the only vendor out there that builds a solution to protect SaaS. So I'm going to go over a quick couple of overview slides and then go over the competition and the strengths that we have over them. Before I do that, there's always this no-brainer where I always ask, okay, so as partners, you probably understand this, but still from a customer perspective, this is still a tough one. And you always have to explain customers saying, okay, customers always think, I've got my data in the cloud, I've got my data with Microsoft, I've got my data with Google. So surely they must do a backup of all my data. And the one thing you need to explain to them is, no, we're not doing backups. They're not doing backups. You are responsible for your own data. And why that's important, we'll cover in a bit. So the SaaS provider is going to look after the application, going to look after things like hardware failures, network, etc. But you, as a user or as a customer, you are responsible for your own data. So you need to protect your data, and you need to protect it from things like human error, etc. Not going to spend out. Where are we going? So this one, as I said, you're responsible for protecting your data. And research of Gartner has shown that by 2022, so that's actually this year. So this is a survey they did a couple of years ago, but they said by 2022, 70% of organizations will have suffered a business disruption because they could not recover data from their SaaS application. And I specifically say SaaS application because this could be very broad. This is not just limited to your emails in Office 365. This could be something in Salesforce. This could be in Dynamics. This could maybe even be in your Active Directory. And we all know the biggest reason for data loss is still the person behind the keyboard. Accidental deletion of data. I received an email. I think I don't need it anymore. I delete it. And then 6 months down the line, someone comes back and says, oh, I need a copy of that email, or I need a copy of that document. Another big one, especially with things like 365, is closing accounts. 365 is not a cheap solution, so every license costs money. So if someone leaves the company, what a lot of admins do is they basically go in and deactivate the license. But by deactivating the license, you also basically destroy all the data, or you delete the data. It's going to stay there for another 30 days to recover. But after that, if you need access to the data, it's gone. So you want to protect against that as well. So when we talk about SaaS data protection, Office 365, Microsoft 365 always comes to mind, but we do more. We also protect Google Workspace. We protect Azure AD. We protect Salesforce. We protect Dynamics. All those applications can hold critical information. All those applications you need to be able to protect. And with the Arcserve SaaS solution, you are able to protect all of these from within the same console. As Richard showed, it's just another connector that you add, and you manage the backups of all your SaaS data from a single console. And I think that's pretty important. We've got one of the broadest coverages of different SaaS applications. So what is important if we look at SaaS data protection? I think the most important one is data availability. You want to make sure that whatever you back up is going to be safe. It's going to be vendor neutral. We talk about that in a bit later on when we look at some of the competition. But it doesn't make sense if you have your backup, if you have your 365 data and then you're going to store it with Microsoft in the same environment, or if you've got your Google data, you store it in the same. You want this to be vendor neutral. You also want to make sure that no matter what, you continue to have access to your data. So you want to make sure data is stored redundant in different locations. And even though that sounds very obvious, we can show you not everyone thinks the same about this. And we want to have things like, we want to make sure it's fully compliant, certified, it's GDPR compliant. So things like what Richard just showed, the right to be forgotten, needs to be implemented as well. Another thing that you want to look at from a SaaS data protection solution is pricing. You want to make this as easy as possible from a pricing perspective, especially as a partner. You want to make sure that to your customers, it's very clear that says, okay, what is the cost? Is it going to be based on capacity? Is it going to be based on the number of licenses? And the thing with capacity is that's always going to grow. So that means you don't have a fixed price. With our solution, it's fixed price with unlimited capacity, no matter what. So basically, you look at the number of users. That's the only thing that you know, pretty straightforward. And then you've got your price. And like I said, unlimited storage, unlimited retention, no tiering with our solution. So some of these solutions basically offer, of the competition offer unlimited storage, but they store all the data in archive tiers, which basically means if you ever have to restore from that archive tier, it's going to take a longer time to restore because it needs to be moved from archive tier first. And then simplicity. You want to make sure that whenever you have to recover, first of all, you want to make sure when you set it up, it's going to be easy to set up. So you are guaranteed that you're backing up all your data. But also when you have to recover data, you want to make sure that's as easy as possible, because once you are in distress, once there is a disaster, you need to recover your data. You don't want to have to start reading a manual just to learn how to restore an email or something. You want to make sure that it's very simple. And as you've seen with the demo, setting up a backup is straightforward. You can do it in 10, 15 minutes, but also restoring data is pretty simple as well. Now with cloud, one thing when you start looking at recovery, one thing you don't have control over is how quickly restores are going to go. So if you're restoring a single email, if you're restoring a single document from your OneDrive, that probably can be done in a couple of minutes, but that's all fine. But now what if there is a large SharePoint site with a couple of, maybe even a couple of terabytes worth of data in there? You want to make sure that you have access to that data. And the Arcserve SaaS solution is the only one that gives you direct access to your data stored in the cloud in your backup to retrieve that document you need from that SharePoint site without having to do the full restore of the SharePoint site. So very important. And then security, as Richard showed. We have role-based administration, but also all the data is encrypted in transit and in rest. Also, the way we store the backup data, it's using immutable technology. So once it's stored, it can actually not be deleted from the backend. So all of it applies to all of the solutions. Now, for the competitive overview, we focused on 365. Why 365 is probably still the largest growing SaaS solution. It also dominates the market. If you look at Microsoft, 365 covers about 90% of the market share. And they're still growing very rapidly. Even the last 2 years, of course, with COVID and everything, and people starting to work from home, they've seen a massive uptake, but it's still continuing. And when we look at 365, Exchange Online and OneDrive are probably the first ones that you think of, but it's also groups and teams, it's OneDrive, it's SharePoint, public folders, but also Azure AD and things like groups, etc. You want to make sure that everything is covered from a 365 perspective. That's what we're going to look at in the next couple of slides. So again, 365 as a SaaS provider, Microsoft 365 doesn't do backup of your data. It is your responsibility, and Microsoft even has it in their service agreements. They basically say you are, as a customer, responsible for making sure that you have backups of your own data. Now you might say, okay, there's the recycle bin, so people can always recover data from the recycle bin. Yes, but only for a certain period of time. After the maximum of 93 days, and you already have to make some changes in the configuration. After 93 days maximum, your data will be gone permanently, and there's no way to recover. And that's when there is a recycle bin. For other data, it could be limited to just 30 days. Also, things like litigation hold basically is not a backup. Litigation hold only means you cannot delete the data from that point. But if there is a malicious user, or if they delete a complete account, that data could still be gone. Also, if you look at Teams, not all Teams data is going to be protected by Microsoft. Some data, if you delete documents, it will end up in the recycle bin. But things like conversations, chats, etc., you cannot restore back into Teams. Also, there's no versioning there. So all in all, enough reasons to look at a good backup solution, which then we offer. So as we said, we have a pretty broad spectrum. We cover 365, we cover Google, etc. But there's also some other parties out there that do protection of SaaS applications. And we're going to look at 3 of the larger ones. We also have a battle card for these, which are going to be available in the partner portal. We'll be adding to those as we go. But before we go into the competition, I actually want to stress some of the unique selling points when you look at our solution. As I said, broadest coverage, 365, but also the other ones. One thing to note is our solution is completely vendor independent. So we use our own data centers. Those are always dual data centers in different geographical locations. And even within a data center, we store 2 copies of the data. So all in all, we have 4 copies of your data in 2 different geographical locations. There's no other vendor out there that basically delivers this kind of protection of your data. As I mentioned, recovery and access to your data in seconds. So the recovery is pretty fast if you have to do a full Teams or a full SharePoint recovery. But having access to your data through those links, which is instantly, literally within seconds, is something that no other vendor can offer. Also, the search and the restore capabilities, the fact that you can search on a keyword across all your users, preview the emails if needed, or preview a document and then restore just that document that you need is key as well, and it's not available in many of the other solutions. And the last thing I mentioned, and Gerard's going to go into that in a bit more detail after this session, it's now also fully integrated into our partner portal. So you can manage your SaaS backups for all your customers from your partner portal. So moving into competition, if you look at some of the analyst reports, a company that often pops up is AvePoint. So AvePoint is a company that provides solutions for 365, where backup is one. They also do a lot of other solutions around migrating data, around records management, document management, and backup is only part of their solution. So if you look at AvePoint, one of the things to note is that they store their data within Azure. They're a big Microsoft partner. That means they've got big contracts with Microsoft, and they use Azure storage to store their backups. So now you're protecting your 365 data, and you're storing your backup within Microsoft, within Azure. And AvePoint recommends to use a data center closest to where your actual data resides. So now you can have the possibility that, for example, I live in the Netherlands, so my 365 data is in the Amsterdam data center for Microsoft, but my backups are in the same data center. Probably not the best thing to do. Talk about immutable backups and things like GDPR. With GDPR, the right to be forgotten, they've implemented actually a deletion of the data. So you can export the data before you delete it, but then you can delete the data. So that means, and any admin can do this. So now as a rogue admin, I can go in and delete my own emails and no one can recover them. Another thing where they say for example, around security of data, they say you can bring your own encryption keys. And that means you can use those keys to encrypt your data. But that also means you become responsible for managing those keys. If you lose that encryption key, you lose access to all your backup data. So again, a malicious user in your environment, if they delete the encryption keys, you basically lose access to all your backup data. They have no preview of data. So basically, you can do a search. I can find that email with the word test in it, but then I don't know if that's the right one. There could be 20 emails with the word test in it, and it could not be pretty clear from just the subject if that's the right email that I need to restore. So you're restoring in the blind. So that's a big challenge when you look at AvePoint. Restore performance. They have not the option to access data through a link. So if you need data from a SharePoint site, you need to recover that full SharePoint site. If that's a large SharePoint site, that could take quite a long time to recover. Ease of use, that could be subjective, but what I found is setting up the solution takes a bit more work. Also, because their management interface is not exclusive to backup, it's actually split into two parts. So there's this generic sort of portal where they manage access for all of their solutions, where backup is one, and that just adds to the complexity. If you look at licensing, it's pretty straightforward. They do a license, standard license, which includes everything. It's about 48 euros per year with a limited retention. They do have some other options. They do have an option where you can bring your own storage, but then the license will be cheaper, but then you have to manage your own storage, and you're going to take the hit on the cost there. Second one that often pops up a lot is Veeam. That's especially a lot of customers already are using Veeam because they still have on-prem servers, virtualized VMware, Hyper-V, and Veeam has basically built a solution to protect 365, which is actually a bolt-on to their on-prem solutions. So the first thing to keep in mind with Veeam is it's not a full SaaS offering. It needs local infrastructure, server, storage, network connection, internet connection. Sure, you can run some of the infrastructure in the cloud as a virtual machine in Azure or AWS, but you still need to manage it. You still need to manage also the storage. Because that storage is not completely separated from the, let's say, the internet, there's always a risk of your backup data being compromised. And ransomware, we know, is becoming smarter and smarter. And the first thing ransomware currently what it tries to do is it tries to find your backup data and tries to encrypt that first. With Veeam, especially if you use on-prem, once the ransomware hits and it finds your backup data, it's the first thing they're gonna attack. Because you have this dedicated infrastructure and it's not a full SaaS offering, you have to do the installation of everything yourself. So it requires setting up servers, installing the software, etc. Just adds to complexity, and you also need to make sure that's maintained, that it gets the right patches. For example, if you run on Windows, you need to make sure you get the updates every time. When we look at security, for example, there is no role-based administration. As Rich showed in our solution, we have different predefined roles that basically allow you to have either a full admin user or a user with very limited rights to just do restores without looking at the data. With Veeam, basically, there is no such thing as role-based administration. It gets installed on the server. Any user with admin permissions on that server will get the ability to access everything on their backup. They can make changes, they can do restores. There's no role-based administration. So especially in larger environments, that could be a big thing. Ease of use, as we've seen with our solution, everything is in one single window, simple web UI. With Veeam, there's 3 or 4 different consoles. There's the admin console itself, and then there's different recovery consoles for Exchange, for OneDrive, for SharePoint, for Teams. So it's all becoming a bit more complicated to. And then when we look at the application support, they have support for the major ones, so Exchange, SharePoint, etc. But for example, limited support for groups or Jammer. If you look at the licensing is very similar. They license per 365 user. If you look at the license cost, that you're going to go like, okay, that seems pretty cheap. But keep in mind, this is just the software. On top of that, you need to look at the cost for the infrastructure. How many servers do I need? How much storage do I need? And that starts adding up when you have longer retentions. And then we're not even speaking about the time it takes to manage all of this. And then the last one I want to talk about for now is Commvault Metallic. Again, a vendor that started out with on-prem backups has moved into backing up SaaS solutions as well. They were pretty late to the game, and it shows because if you look at things like their coverage on 365, they cover Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint. Very similar to AvePoint. They are using Azure data centers to store your backup data. So again, if you're protecting Microsoft 365, your backup data is going to go with the same vendor and potentially in the same data center as where your production data is. Ease of setup. From all the applications I've looked at, Metallic is probably the most complicated one to set up. You need to have need to configure every workload. So if you want to do Exchange, OneDrive, everything needs to be added, configured separately. Also, the backup frequency. Metallic is the only one that's limited to only 1 backup per day. We do multiple backups per day. We do at least 2 backups. Also, if you look at restore capabilities, it's pretty limited. So, for example, with Exchange, you can export to PST, you can download some data. But for example, for OneDrive and SharePoint, there's no export, there's no download, there's no sharing. So the only way if you want to restore data for SharePoint with Metallic is to actually restore back to SharePoint or back to M365. And again, large SharePoint site could take a couple of hours, potentially even days to restore. And what we noticed was performance. This was one of the slowest interfaces that I came across on the different solutions. Sometimes it took up to 30 seconds just for screens to refresh, to rebuild. So something to take in mind when you start looking at this solution. Commvault Metallic is licensed per protected user, again, includes unlimited storage. And as you can see, pricing is pretty similar to some of the other vendors, so around 40-45 euros per year, up to 750 users. They do offer some additional functionality around e-discovery, but that will add another 25% to the license price. So those are the major ones. There's some other ones as well. So there's companies like Rubrik, like Barracuda, Backupify, Cohesity. Not going to go for the because of time. Not going to go into detail for these. We're going to be sharing the slides, so you can always go over these again. We will also be sharing the battle cards for most of these solutions in the partner portal, which go into more detail. So with that, I'm at the end of my part of the session. So yeah, hopefully it is useful. And for this, I want to hand over to Jared, who's going to show you how this actually works from within the partner portal.
Excellent. Thanks, Jaap. You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, one sec there now, and I'm going to show my screen. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Okay, so this part of the presentation is pretty straightforward if you're familiar with the MSP portal. With this new service now integrated into our portal, it makes it much easier for you to go to your one-stop landing page to activate this. So basically you go where you're familiar to the partner zone. Everybody should have access. If you don't, come back to us and we can make sure that you have your own access. In addition to all the other options, you go to your management portal, and then this brings you into, again, what should be familiar, the MSP licensing offering. And on the left-hand side, you have your classics, cloud services, the legacy cloud backup, and we've added a new option, which is the SaaS Backup new. So this is where you go to activate our Arcserve SaaS Backup. Once you go in, there's a one-time setup for an MSP. So there's an additional log on. You create your login credentials, basically. This is a one-time deal for yourself as an MSP. Depending on your previous agreements, you may be required to sign an agreement because you're going to the cloud. Very simple process, company name, MSP name, contact name, email address, and password. So then you go straight in and you now have the option to add sub accounts. So a sub account is what we would call your end user. So you can add multiple end user accounts to your MSP account. Again, you would give it a unique email address. Each sub account requires a unique email address, and something like service desk or support at the company will make sure that you get all the notifications if there are any for this sub account. And once you do that, you now have created a sub account, and
Gerard, we can't hear you. I don't know if it's just me.
Same here.
Gerard, are you there? Oh, maybe it says he's talking. Gerard, I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Barry, I don't know if you want to skip to your bit, and now hopefully Gerald will come back to us. I don't know if you want to grab presenter rights, because I know have you got a couple of slides left to finish off with, Barry? Do that whilst
That's I was going to say that. Okay, give me a minute
whilst
there.
he sorts his gremlins.
Yeah, no worries. Rich, can you see my screen there?
I can indeed.
Okay, I'll just continue on. It should be able to go down here. Now, pricing should appear.
Don't believe. Sorry, did my system crash?
Hey, Gerard, yeah, I think so, mate.
Oh my God! Sorry about that.
The joys of working from home.
Did you miss it all?
No, we didn't miss it all. We didn't miss
All
it
right,
all.
okay.
But anyway,
Sorry,
we're gonna skip to what
yeah,
Barry's gonna do is
yeah,
price submit. We'll head back to
yeah.
you, Gerard. Yeah.
I do.
No worries.
Okay. Good man, Jer. So, Rich, you should be able to see the pricing slide,
Can.
correct? Brilliant. Okay. So, yeah, folks, it's quite straightforward, right? So we have entry level pricing. So I've got GBP and Euro because I'm conscious that it's an EMEA call. So I'll just go through the GBP pricing there and how it works. So you'll see the price that, you know, if you just buy 1 seat, 2 seats, you're looking at a price of £2.33. I've highlighted partner buy price. I still have partners asking, you know, what sort of margin to add on. That's purely up to you guys, how you wrap it up into your service, but that is the price that you'll always be invoiced per seat from us at Arcserve. Okay, you'll notice that as you grow, there are price breaks. As you get up to over 250, it comes down to 194. You got over 500, 174, and then if you grow significantly and get over the 1,000, you're looking at £1.55. So they are pretty attractive price breaks, which will, you know, encourage you to increase your footprint and grow with the new SaaS solution. Our ask is just to, you know, as a mere sort of sales guy, I would ask any partners, get in touch with your channel account manager, be it a big opportunity, a small opportunity that you're working on. It's just to see these accounts, get them in there. We find that they do grow significantly over time. So just reach out to your Arcserve contact. And just to reiterate, if you're unclear who that is, please drop me an email, barry.hughes@arcserve.com. Apologies, folks. I was previously StorageCraft. We are more than happy to set up one-to-one demos if you feel that you want to, you know, dig a bit deeper into the solution. We have a very large team now, so I would encourage you to do that. We also have prepaid pricing options available. Again, contact your account manager and we'd be more than happy to send the quotes over to you. Okay, so I'll just continue on. Rich, give me the last one here. Okay, so can you see? Just to reiterate, the positive feedback that I've been hearing from partners is, you know, merely, as I said, selling this solution over the past 6 months prior to it, you know, launching in the portal, which is obviously great news. It makes it easier to transact. We have 4 copies of your customers' data. As Yap said, we can reassign a lever, no extra charge. The solution is unlimited retention. Azure AD is included in the offering. We will only bill active users. And again, the ease of install and deployment. Now, I know Jer kind of paused there. He had some bandwidth issues there yesterday, which I expect carried into today. So hopefully he's going to be able to take back over and finish where he left off.
I'm ready.
Jer, you're with us?
I'm
okay.
Poised and ready to go. Yeah, I don't know what
Good
happened.
man.
It was my laptop actually that just went. I'm blaming Microsoft, so.
Don't worry, I've had a few of my own challenges this side as well. I can be forgiven. Okay, Jer, I'll pass it over to you. Bear with me.
I'm going to take presenter. I'm going to go again. No, can this time? No. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, but we see the one with the go to webinar details.
Okay, sorry. Oh. It's just not my day.
Jer, I think you might have another tab open there. Would that be it?
No. No, sorry, I don't know what's. I've got a flashing screen. No, sorry. I think I've goosed this time around. Sorry, Barry.
That's okay. It just, you know what, Jer, it just underlines the importance and the offer from our side to do any one-to-one demos with partners. So again, folks, we hit a roadblock here. It does happen. Again, you want a one-to-one, we have the resources, we have the team, we're more than willing to help. So please just get in touch with us and we'd be more than happy to set them up.
I think I can just see that there was a question or two came in. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I think Rich is going to go through those.
Okay. Yeah, Barry, did you finish your slides? Was it just the pricing you wanted to show?
Yeah, no, I just summarized with the bullet points at the end. I'm done, Rich. You can take it away.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so yeah, there's been some great questions in. Christopher Moore has asked a couple of good questions about the coverage in terms of Office 365 groups and Planner, etc., etc. Yeah, that's all covered. Yammer isn't, but the nice thing with this product is it's very transparent with what it can and can't do. There's no, because it's important for us to basically let you know, if there's anything that the product can't do, then you're armed with that information, because then you're not left with an embarrassing, can you recover this? Oh no, we can't. But it's the cover from the product is very, very comprehensive. Okay. Steve asked if someone leaves, what happens to the data? The data is very much kept within the system. That user will remain there in the system so that you can recover from them, again, for any legal or HR issues or anything like that. But you won't have to license them. Because you'll simply just, you'll probably transfer that user's license to a new starter, and we'll just follow that live license. Okay, and then someone went on to ask, what's the definition of an active user? Yeah, so it is based on the Office 365 license. So we just call it a live seat. Okay, so if you, and that could be anything, any range. It can be in like an E1 license, an E5 license. So the best way to think of it is if that particular account has got an Office 365 user license assigned to it, then that is an active user. Okay, we do not count shared mailboxes. Okay, the caveat there is unless you have a license assigned to that shared mailbox, which can happen. Okay, so you do need to think about that and make sure that you're ahead of your kind of licensing game, as it were. Okay, but yeah, good questions all around. But yeah, if you guys have got any more, please feel free to whack them into the questions pane, and we'll answer as we'll go through. But Jared, it looks like, have you fixed your screen, mate?
I think I have. Third time lucky.
No worries, mate. Over to you then, fella.
No pressure. Yeah, so I think it all went wrong on the setting up of the MSP partner account. So as I said, once you click into the option to take the SaaS backup, you get a one-time option to set up your login credentials and email. Once you've done that, you straight into the MSP portal, and the option really is to add a sub account. So you can add multiple sub accounts, and these are basically your end user accounts for each of your customers. Again, you set up a sub account. Let's say it's ABC company. You give the email. Each sub account requires a unique email address, and the suggestion would be you'd use something like support or service desk to make sure that any notifications that you get for this account go where they should go. And once you do that, you then have created your sub account. And this, as you create multiple sub accounts and you start your backups, you'll see an overview of how many sub accounts you have, how many seats are being protected, what the total size is being protected. And to get the whole thing going and activate the connectors, you basically go over to the right-hand side. For each sub account, there's a manage button. You hit the manage button, and that brings you to where Richard's demo started earlier on in this webinar, basically setting up all the connectors as you need. So this is your one screen overview. Each time you hit manage for each of your sub accounts, you go and manage that particular account. That's it, short and simple. It's quite straightforward. But as Barry said, and I said earlier, the best thing is if for the first setup, if you want, you can reach out to myself and Barry, and we can set up a remote session, get you up and running, get it sorted, do an overview, and off you go. It's just set up the accounts after that. So that's basically it. I hope it's worth waiting for. Apologies for the 2 other mess ups.
No worries, Jared. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Just proves it's real. You know, we're not just press play.
That's true. It is live. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've kind of covered the questions as well. There's nothing more come in. So for me, Barry, I don't know if you want to close off, but I think we're pretty much done.
No, I'd just like to say, Rich, thanks for that. Thanks, yeah, for the competitive analysis. I think partners will find that very useful. Jared, thanks for the portal walkthrough. Not an easy task, but yeah, just not to sound like a parrot, but honestly, all we ask is get in touch with those opportunities. We will set up the one-to-one. We have the bandwidth here, and thanks very much for joining us this morning. Have a good
Excellent.
day.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye. Bye-bye.